if you're already talking to AI a bit about your business, you've got an account, you're already kind of, you haven't used it for a lot, but you've shared a bit, go in there and just say, based on what you know about my business, how could I be using AI better?
Hi, and welcome to the Bright Minds of eCommerce podcast. I'm Dana, founder of Bright Red Marketing, and I created this podcast because I wanted to bring you the best advice from Australian experts in e-commerce and e-commerce store owners. If you're wanting relatable stories and actionable advice, as well as the latest Facebook advertising strategies, you're in the right place. So let's get into today's episode. Hi, and welcome to the Bright Minds of eCommerce podcast. Today we're here with MG to talk all about AI. Welcome, Em.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited.
It is so good to have you on the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in the AI education space?
Okay, where do I start with this? So AI, obviously, for the majority of us, has not existed for very long. So I've only been in this sector of the marketing industry for the last 2 to 3 years. But before that, I had a business where I was coaching in marketing for female-founded businesses. Now, what I do at this point is I educate female founders to use AI in their marketing and their operations to save 10 to 15 hours a week at least. And that's where we start because, especially with females, reducing our workload, giving us back more time. We're wearing all the hats. It's very, very helpful to have that time. And you can use that time to either make more money or like go to the beach, hang out with your kids, go to the gym, whatever it is that you want to do. Most women have started a business because they want to create more freedom. And then we get into a point where we're like, I have no freedom. In fact, I have the opposite. And that's what AI can completely solve relatively quickly, which is mind-blowing.
Yeah. It's an incredible area, and I'm so excited to have a chat about this with you. So if you're speaking to an e-commerce brand owner, because that's most of our listeners, yes, and they're like, we want to start using AI in our marketing, where do you think most people start and where do you think people actually should start?
It's a really good question, and I am very glad you've started with this because it's the biggest reason people don't get a result from AI is because they're starting wrong. And most people start by getting ChatGPT and asking it to write them some content, some captions, and then going, this does not sound like my brand. I'm throwing it in the bin. And I think that makes sense that we start out that way. To be honest, that's kind of how I started because I did a lot of just like messing around with things to see what happens. But I wanted to do that intentionally to learn about AI, whereas people in e-commerce businesses, you're not like, I want to learn about AI. You're like, I want to use AI to get a better result in my business. So where everyone starts, honestly, whether you're e-com, service, massive organizations, small businesses, like everything, it's finding what the current bottlenecks in your business are and what is taking your time. Because those are the things that if you start to use AI for them, they are the things that will save you the most time, right? We aren't taking a problem approach. We're taking a spaghetti approach where, it's that throw spaghetti, see what happens. And you will learn things that way. That's how I've learned a lot of the things I've learned. But it takes a lot longer and you don't actually get a return on investment in terms of your time or if you've invested anything to pay for those AI tools. And it's not as sexy. Like, of course, it's like downloading an app and playing with an app is so much more fun than being like, let's look at the problems. I get that. And that's why, the first part of my course is, even though my course is on AI, the first part of my course has nothing to do with AI because 99% of small business owners don't know what their problems are that they're trying to solve. And they also don't know their processes. And you can't get AI to follow a process if you don't even know your process. So that's kind of layering in some more things there.
Yeah. So I think the podcast is done. You've said everything that is important. Will they go sort your processes out first? No, this is true. We'll keep going. I think I am definitely one that falls prey to this myself. Whereas I'll see someone talking about a shiny new tool and I'm just like, let's go fix this. What's this? This looks like fun. But I think that's a really good point around just let's solve one thing at a time.
Yes. Yeah. And that is, I've learned this the hard way too, because initially when I created my AI marketing machine course, I called it 10 cogs because we've got a machine, right? And obviously marketing, branding, like let's have some cogs in the machine. And so I was getting everyone to come up with like these 10 different cogs in their machine that they could, create that would then save them time. But what I worked out is that not everyone needs 10 cogs. Some people just need one. Like you just need one thing that is really well AI-ified, and I put that in little inverted commas. People probably can't see the video. I'm saying AI-ified because it's not a real word, but it will be a word at some point. But it might just be that one thing that they need that will literally save them 20 hours a week. Yet I'm like, here, do 10 things, and then everyone gets overwhelmed. So I also learned the hard way with that. And we all are right now, because like no one came out of the womb as an adult. Like whoever's an adult now didn't come out of the womb knowing how to use this stuff. So we're all just fumbling through it and hoping for the best.
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously there's a lot of different tools out there at the moment. So if someone's identified a problem, and obviously it's going to be very problem dependent, but are there particular tools that you recommend people start with first? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. So again, it's like we think about tools. Tools are the path to the solution rather than the actual solution. So it's like, what's the problem? What solution do you want? And then think about the tool. But generally speaking, I always recommend that everyone nails how to use a particular LLM. Now, let me explain what that is. I always say it because I want people to know what LLM means. It's like the education that we all now need as we go into this new world, because it's not just our work that's changing in our business, right? It's everything is changing. And so I'm like, I'm going to use this language, even if people go, what the hell is she talking about? You'll need to know it, right? LLM.
We will learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Stands for large language model. That's what ChatGPT is. That's what Claude is. That's what Grok is. That's what DeepSeek is. They're large language models. And what it means ultimately is that behind that model is a heap of language, a heap of words that it's trained on, and all of that data gives the output. So, in layman's terms, that's what it is. Most people, more than 90% of people, are not using LLMs as well as what they could be. And the example that I gave earlier, right, was that we do something, we don't get a result, and then we throw it in the bin, or we might try a little bit harder because now all of a sudden it's rammed down our throat. So, okay, I'll try that again. And we're still not getting a great result. And I work with women who have been using AI since, ChatGPT landed, and they still come into a session with me and they're like, oh, there's like this extra way I could put this into my workflow, or, that I didn't even think of, partly because the functions have changed so much, but there's always more that you could be doing with it. And the way I like to think of it now, and I do this with my team as well, is that every single task in my business, there could be an element of AI. So whenever we go to do something, we ask first, how could AI be a part of this process to speed it up? And so that, I actually think that's going to become something that every single person needs to do in their job, in their workplace, with their team, if you have a team in your business, because it's changing the way we think about how we work. And that's how we get better return on our time and investment in it. So I've kind of segued out of that a little bit. The answer to the question was large language models. Like, learn to use whatever your favorite is. Honestly, you could switch between them all if you want to, but like, just learn one, because I know we were joking about this before, because people do switch things all the time, and it's actually not that helpful to switch things all the time, because every time you switch, you get lag. So pick one, master it, and what you learn from mastering that one will transfer into other platforms as well.
Yeah. I will say I have just switched to Claude because ChatGPT was annoying me.
And it's a massive move. If I was picking just one large language model right now, I would pick Claude.
Yeah.
Should I
the
explain
stuff that
why?
Claude's been able to do?
Yeah.
But you definitely should, because I'm a massive Claude convert.
Yes. So, I mean, the big reason why there's been a shift just in the last couple of weeks is because of some political reasons, which makes sense. And it has actually, that political discussion was essentially that OpenAI gave the US military access to things that it really shouldn't have, and Claude said no. And people are, acting with their money, which is great. And it did make OpenAI go back and change what they were doing. I could go down that rabbit hole. I won't go down the political rabbit hole. No point. The Claude, though, obviously, from what we can tell, has got better ethics. I would argue that we might not know all the details on that. But in terms of usability, there is so much functionality with Claude to not just, write captions and content and written outputs, but to actually do things for you in your business and become like a literal co-worker. That's part of their program is co-work, to create websites. Like, I mean, you must be looking at that kind of thing and going, holy, like the websites it can build, so amazing.
I'm very behind with a lot of the AI stuff because we're so busy with other parts of our business at the moment. But I dabbled with the co-work thing the other day and I'm like, I'm on two screens and one of my other screens is just working on its own. This is wild. Like, this is no longer just like thinking, it actually is doing.
Yeah.
It capped out of its little usage in like 10 minutes flat.
Well,
I was
that's
like, the
the other
potential here
thing.
is insane.
Yes, to consider about Claude as well. And this is something that I'm mindful of with small businesses in particular, your overheads, you need to be mindful. Claude, you really need to be paying for the $100 a month option, not 20. Because, and this is also comes back to the ethical code of practice that they have, which is that, you know, we're using environmentally, the more we're using these AI models, the more impact it has. And so they are charging more per use so that they can, I guess, encourage you to be more specific in the way that you're interacting with it. So
Mindful?
you're not using as many tokens, which is how it uses energy.
Yeah.
So you will, like, you do
Yeah.
have to budget for more if you're going to use Claude.
Yeah. Yeah. But also if it's actually doing things rather than me having to do
For
things.
me, I'm like, if it's
I'm here for it.
$100 a month and it's doing even just like 2 hours of work for me in a month, which is well and truly beyond that, then it's worth it. So
Yeah.
it's weighing those things up.
Yeah, 100%. Where do you see brands getting the biggest wins with AI, specifically on the sort of marketing side of things? Like, are there tasks or processes or tools that you see the most as sort of like a general that people can go, oh, I haven't thought about that, but that is a problem of mine. Let's look into that.
Yes, I would say the research, outreach, and developing of overall strategy based on that is huge for small business. So what I mean by this is small businesses, we get bogged down in what we have to do on the day-to-day basis. We get stuck in, you know, working in our business rather than on it. And we completely can neglect the opportunities that are out there for growth because we don't have time to work on it. And you can set up Claude with a scheduled task and you can do this on ChatGPT as well, that is doing, you know, like weekly research into trends and what's happening, opportunities, and then even starting to like draft personalized emails to the right people to, you know, start those connections and start that process. So it's actually a really simple thing to do without getting into, you know, the connectors of Claude with MCPs, which anybody listening who hasn't heard of that's going to be like, another acronym, calm down. But that's basically just how it does stuff for you. That's a really simple and effective way to use AI to help you build and scale without you having to spend so much time doing it and finding those opportunities. And then in terms of your marketing, insights are huge, right? Having something like Claude be able to look at, especially with ecom, like looking at the insights of what are people clicking on. And actually, I think Shopify now has got some really good data in there, doesn't it? Like you can get a lot of really great data off. That's improved a lot in the last few years. But you can connect Shopify to Claude and you can get it to get all of that information and tell you, hey, this is where you should be focusing, where your marketing should be focusing here, or this messaging was working really well, this wasn't, to help you direct your strategy rather than just go write me a piece of content for this. And the last one I'll say is, oh my God, I've got so many ideas. It's ridiculous. Every time I teach people, new ideas come in and I'm like, I've got too many, stop my brain. But I'll give you a third one because I know e-com businesses are often using like Meta ads, Google ads as well. And being able to use AI from the most basic standpoint of, you know, just downloading the CSV from your Meta ads or Google ads, putting it into ChatGPT and saying, hey, help me optimize these so that it looks at the data without you looking at the data, or if you look at it and you're like, this hurts my brain?
Yeah, I've had a couple of, so we do some coaching as well as our clients. Obviously, we are meta ads people, and it's really interesting the results you get from that. I find it's still very hit and miss as to whether that's actually going to work for your business.
Yes.
So it's interesting to see how that's going to play out. I would say it's better for spotting problems and like things that should be turned off, more so than overall strategy. But I do think it's very interesting. We dabbled with it the other day and I pulled some data from one of my accounts in, and it spotted some things that we would never have spotted because we never have time to go that absolute granular detail.
Right.
So it's very interesting.
I think the thing is you need to know what you're looking at to know what to look at, if that makes sense. If you're doing your own ads, for example, and you're already doing that process, then it makes sense. I think with ads, you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't understand ads, then trying to use AI for ads is probably not actually that helpful, because then you're just giving AI information and hoping for the best. And this is the thing about business, right, is that we do actually need to know a little bit about everything unless we're outsourcing it. Otherwise, you really have no idea what you're asking it to do. And AI will replicate what you do. And if what you're doing is not good, well, then, like, what's the point?
I think that is 100% spot on, and I think that applies for everything. I think if you're asking AI to do your organic marketing outreach, but you don't know how to outreach people in a way that sounds human and is interesting to people, it's going to deliver you something that's going to be rubbish, but you're not going to know any better, so you're going to send it. If you're going to ask it to do SEO for you, but you don't know how to do SEO, you're just going to take it without knowing whether that's actually what's good for your business. Same with ads. If you don't know how to run ads and it just gives you something to do, like one of the girls in a coaching program I was in, and I was the coach, and she's just gotten distracted and ChatGPT'd it, and it's told her to do this thing. And I'm like, I have never, ever in all my 16 years of doing this heard anyone suggest that as a strategy. And ChatGPT's just come up with it. And I'm like, that's such a waste of time and money. But because she doesn't know, and then there was a little gap between some calls, she's just done it. And I'm just like, ah. So I think that's probably the most relevant point, is if you don't know what you don't know, you're just going to take it at its word. So even like from copywriting, if you don't know what good copy is,
yeah, you're just getting AI copy.
It's hard to get it to do good copy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that sort of leads perfectly into my next point of, where do you think that human judgment is still needed to lead this? Because obviously we can use AI for a lot of things. Where do you see that distinction between we really need that human judgment and that input versus letting AI sort of take over some of these things?
And this is where it is going, is where we're working together with AI, right? But we do need to get that balance right. And right now, most people, most businesses, even large organizations, not getting that balance right, because it's the messy middle of it. And I think that, I mean, it's okay that, because everyone is in that messy middle, but you'll learn things. For me, I think right now, and this is open to change as things change, it's when you're using AI for something that's like written, that, with a large language model, so that's the input output kind of AI versus getting it to do things for you, it's 10% of you at the beginning, making sure that 100% of you is in that 10%, if that makes sense. So you give 100% for the first 10% of the process, because you need to give it really good information. You don't give it really good information in that first 10%, the rest of the 90% is crap no matter what. Then after you've given it good information, and maybe that's something we can talk about, is like how you give it good information, then 80%, ideally, once you've trained it well, will be done by AI. And then there's another 10% at the end that is the human. So it's why when in my course, I never teach anyone to automate content. There's maybe a few cases, very small cases, that maybe it's automated as a repurposing thing, but otherwise there needs to be a human. It's called human in the loop in AI world, where you check over it, because this is your brand and your business. And if you don't read through it and check that, it sounds like you, that it represents your brand values, etc., that could be detrimental to your brand.
100%
And
agree.
what I do, and this is as simple as when you're starting to use these large language models to write things marketing on your behalf, read it out loud in that last 10%, because when you read it out loud, there'll be a word you're like, I don't say that word. Like you'll have that visceral reaction. Like, I don't know, I've trained mine out of them so well now, but if it says like unlock your potential or something, like.
You just get the ick. You're like,
Yeah.
no, we don't know.
So that's the breakdown there. And I also think it's training people in your team to do that same thing. Is we still need to use our brain, because that's also, a concern. I went on a flight recently and I didn't have Wi-Fi. I was like, I can't get any work done because I can't access AI. But that's like a bit of a red flag because it means like, I'm like, I don't want to use my brain. But the AI would do it so much quicker, right? So this is something that we're, again, going to have to work out if we care about our brains, which hopefully we do. How do we navigate that? Whole nother subject.
Very much so. This is why I want to do on the podcast, because it's a very interesting conversation. I think it'd be really interesting to have this conversation again in 6 months or 12 months and see how much has changed.
Yes.
Because I think we're definitely moving more into a space where more people are using it. More people are very anti-AI completely. And I'm slightly worried for some of those people in some spaces, because I'm just like, good luck.
Yes.
But it's very much about that balance, I think. Like, we talk about it a lot internally. We don't use a lot of AI in our business for like client producing work at this stage. That may change. A lot of it's back end processes and things. But it's a really interesting conversation, because we look at it and go, well, if it does go the way we think it's going to go, these giant chunks of what we do are going to be taken over by AI. So what's going to make us different? What's going to make us relevant? And how do we sort of present that to people that we're still worth what we do when they think that AI can do these big chunks? But I think it's that human element. It's the strategy. It's the thinking things through. It's what's actually going to make us different, because everyone's using AI. It's all going to come out the bloody same.
And I think you've made a really good point there, because, well, okay, there's two things here. People will think they can get AI to do the things that you do, but then they'll go and get AI to do those things and go, that was crap. Because we didn't know how to train it to do that thing well, or to ask the right questions. Like, with marketing, if you're working with a brand that, sells a product, skin tanning, I don't know, I went to Thailand, I used tanning cream. What the first thing that came to my head. Tanning products. And that's been their focus, is the product. You've got to be able to ask them questions to get the right information. And because AI likes to please, which is why, your person in your program had that experience, because ChatGPT just wants to go, yes, we've got the solution. But actually, it's just giving a random, maybe not that helpful solution. So having human oversight actually becomes even more important than ever, because now online AI is eating AI. So there's more AI content online than there is human content, because it's just been able to, X the volume. And so it's eating itself essentially, and that becomes a problem. So that's one part of like segue off that. And the other thing that I think is going to be important now and into the future is for each person in the team of an organization to have ownership over the AI tasks. So we all become managers of AI away. And it's what I've been sharing with my team just recently, is in the next 6 months, what you'll all be doing is managing AI to do your tasks. So we need to know, like, we're getting really granular on our SOPs, because they're going to hand those over to an AI agent. That doesn't mean I'm firing my team, but it means that they're in charge of those as the human in the loop, to make sure that it's trained well, it's doing the right thing. If it breaks, what do we do? I don't want to fix all of those things, because the amount of things we have happening in the background is just insane. But we can have all of those things happening in our organization, because it's not all humans doing it. And so we get to expand. And like, I had a meeting with my assistant this morning, and she's just excited about all of the expanse of new things she's going to get to do, because she doesn't have to do the boring, tedious crap, because she's building AI to do it. Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting. If you're smart and you know what you're doing and you can do that big picture thinking, it just gives you the ability to do so much more.
Yes.
Like, I don't think it is restrictive as much as it is allowing people to do cool things, because now you've got more time because it's doing the crappy stuff you didn't want to do in the first place.
It's like the development of any technology, really. It just allows us to be more productive and hopefully, long term, I don't know what this looks like politically. Hopefully we can work less hours but not get paid less. Do you know what I mean? Like for us in business, it's great because we can work less hours and hopefully still have the same output and it's not an issue. But obviously not everyone's in business. There are economical, worldwide things to consider, and it is, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think people burying their heads in the sand are going to get whiplash pretty soon if they haven't already.
I'm scared for some people.
Yeah, I am too. I think there's maybe it's a bit of ego as well, like nothing can do the job the way I can do it, right? And agreed, it can't yet. And there does need to be a human in there, but we're going to need to learn to work with it. Just like we learned to work with the internet. Like imagine if someone came into your workplace and was like, I will only use a fax machine.
Yeah, it's like, bye. This doesn't work anymore.
No.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. So we definitely do this again in a year. We'll see what's changed.
Yeah, even
you touched on something.
Will be different.
Yeah. Honestly, the last 5 weeks, things have changed so drastically, and I'm just like, let's keep in the loop on this. You touched on something before around like teaching it to sound like you. What are some of your best tips and things around actually getting it like that? Because I know that's something a lot of people really struggle with, is like how to teach it.
Yes.
To be more human.
Yeah. Okay. So there are 2 parts of training an AI model, whether you are using ChatGPT, Claude, whatever you're using. And those 2 parts are instructions and knowledge base. The way I like to describe this is imagine you're hiring someone. Now, whether you've hired someone before, you've probably been hired, you've been through a hiring process. You give them a job description and then you give them information about your business that they need to know in order to do the job well. So if you were actually hiring a content writing assistant in your business or a social media manager or a marketing assistant in your business, you'd have a job description saying, these are the types of tasks I want you to be able to do. And, these are some of our policies, whatever it may be. You'd give them information about what it is you want them to do, like a job description. You'd then give them, I remember back my first job at Bunnings Warehouse, and I got like this lever arch file. I had to work in the tool shop. So I had to go and learn about all the tools in my own time when I wasn't getting paid $7 an hour, and then go back and be like at the tool shop counter and talk to grown men who didn't believe I knew a thing about tools. I was like, I've got my file. Anyway, that's like,
I have done research. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, actually, I know all about that drill. So they didn't believe me. That was fun. I got to sit behind the counter while my male counterparts just off they go, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm getting paid $7 to sit here and do nothing. Anyway, that lever arch file was like my knowledge base of things I needed to know in order to do the job well. So in your large language model, you need to give it that knowledge base, and I'll tell you where that goes, because that's the next thing. It's like, cool, how do I give it to it? If you're in ChatGPT, we'll talk about the free version so that it's easy for everyone. No matter what version you've got project folders in ChatGPT, and same in Claude, project folders. When you go into those project folders, you can add instructions and files. So exactly what I said, instructions, that's the job description. Files are things like a file full of your copy from that you've humanly written, not your AI written copy, for like maybe 10 examples of different types of content. Maybe you create a project folder that is specific to writing product descriptions, right? And so you would have the instructions are, you write product descriptions for my business, blah, blah, blah. This is my business. This is what we sell, da, 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 da. In the knowledge base, examples of all your product descriptions, copy and paste them into a document, put it in there. And then that project can be there to write future product descriptions in the exact same way that you write your product descriptions based on the examples. And that is literally everything you need to know to get started with training it really well. And then the next step, which I'll give in case anyone's already up to that, is when you're talking to it, if it's not saying things the way you would say it, so say you read through it, you say it out loud, you're like, rewrite it. So take exactly what it's written, rewrite it the way you would write it, and then give it back to it in the same conversation and say, hey, this is how I rewrote this. Can you analyze the difference between the two and give me instructions that I can give you to make you sound more like me? Then take those instructions and put that into the instructions of the project folder. So I feel like I almost need to draw a diagram of this right now, or maybe someone needs to reverse 15 seconds to listen to that again.
Yep.
Those instructions in, that's how, you know how, I don't know why AI is doing this right now. It's going, know this, know that, no, like it's 3 no's, full stop, next line. It's doing that all the time at the moment. So I've had to go, no, writing like this, do it this way, and then put that in the instructions. But then in 6 months' time, it'll be doing something different and I'll have to change those instructions.
It's a constant process. It comes up with weird grammar rules every now and then. And you're like, no.
See, I'm terrible with grammar anyway.
Yeah.
So I actually have no idea if the grammar is right. I'm just like, yep.
I'm a little bit of a grammar nerd, so then it will do things and I'm like, no, that's too grammar nerdy, don't do that, because now I feel like you sound like AI because you've used things I would not normally use. Perfect. And then I have some weird grammar quirks, so I want it to use my grammar quirks so it still sounds like I wrote it. But that's the step I've been missing, is I just expect it to remember that in the conversation, not going back and adding it back into the instructions. So that's a really good tip.
Yeah, yes. And it's constant, the feedback, because they are updating the models all the time as well. So if they update the model, what that does is it essentially changes the way that AI is thinking. And so you could, the day they change the model, go in, have the same conversation as what you had the day before, and the output, you're like, where is this going? It's gone on a complete different tangent. So then sometimes, which is again annoying, you've got to update it. You've got to say, based on your recent update, how should I be changing my instructions so that it matches the way you think? And then go and change instructions.
If anyone's listening to this and they're like, I want to start doing this, what's sort of the thing that you would recommend they start doing first? Like, what's something they can actually go do based off this conversation? And I know what you're going to say because we started with it.
Yeah. But sometimes you need reiterating.
Maybe 2 things.
I think the first thing is just nailing that large language model, that whatever one you're using right now, don't try and switch it up. Just pick the one that you're using right now. Go and do what I just shared with those project folders so that you can experiment with it. And even maybe like set aside, like an hour a week to go in and just play without expectation, because a lot of it is just kind of learning from playing with it and seeing what it comes up with. And if you're trying to get something done that, usually would take you an hour and you're like, I want to use AI to get this done in 20 minutes, but then it takes you more than an hour, you're going to be like, oh, I've just wasted that time. So you don't want to have that pressure when you're just getting in there and seeing what happens. And I want to add another one in there. This is something that I think is awesome to do, especially if you're like not sure what you could be using AI for. If you're already talking to AI a bit about your business, you've got an account, you're already you haven't used it for a lot, but you've shared a bit, go in there and just say, based on what you know about my business, how could I be using AI better? And if you've given it some context throughout the time you've been using it, which most of us have, even if we're not the best user of it, like we've, gone back and forth a bit, then it looks through the context of your conversations and says, here's some ways you could be using it.
I love that. I think that's a great tip. And on that note, if people want to find you, learn more from you, learn more about your course, what's the best way for people to reach out and be in contact?
Come and find me on Instagram is probably the best place. So The Real MG, I'm sure you can put the link somewhere in the show notes. And I also have got I'm pretty sure it's in my bio, should be, because I just released a masterclass. I'm like, I try to only have one freebie at a time, but I have got a starter pack, which it had basically a bunch of the starter resources that I had for free. And I'm like, let's just put them in one place. So it's a freebie, talks you through a few things in ChatGPT, like creating those knowledge bases. Also gives you my list of tools that I use and what I use them for. And there's another thing in there. There's 3 parts to it, and I can't remember what the third part is. Let's call it a bonus
surprise
secret thing that you've got to go and find out.
Go download it and you'll find it.
Yeah. And if you, whatever reason you can't find it, just send me a DM on Instagram, because it depends on what I'm focusing on promoting as my freebie at the time.
That is very fair. That's very fair. And then a couple of questions we ask everyone just to finish up. What is your favorite business book or podcast?
My favorite business book would be Rocket Fuel, which is really about a team and how to be the visionary and let go of the integration of things. And
Fabulous.
Podcast, I would have said 6 months ago, Diary of a CEO. Not so much anymore. Probably Tim and Steph Frey. Yeah, I mean, I'm in their coaching program, and so a lot of it is relevant to the conversations we're already having. And sometimes, just like as we've done today, rehashing things is really helpful. And while I get a lot of that from their program, I love listening to them talk about it on their podcast.
Yeah, wonderful. And what's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
It's a really good question. Celebrate the wins. I don't think we celebrate the wins enough. And
we do not.
Yeah. And it's been a thread for me throughout my entire 10 years in business. And I've been learning in the last couple of years. I mean, I would have been told that ages ago, but you know how you hear it when you're ready to hear it properly. So yeah, just in the last few years, it's like, actually celebrate the wins. It doesn't have to be like, let's go for champagne. It's just like, take a moment to sit down and go, wow, I did that. Or look at how far I've come. Breathe into it and, write it down, share it with someone, celebrate it in some way.
I definitely need to hear that myself because I am terrible at it.
Yeah.
So, and I think thank you for the good advice.
It's also a female thing, right? And potentially like a, down under thing, tall poppy kind of, we're just like, yep, keep going. We don't need to jazz hands about it, but do the jazz hands.
I saw a quote once that was like, I don't celebrate my wins because I just sort of expected that I was going to do them.
Yeah.
And that one hurt.
But
it was like,
it's true.
Yeah, no, I should still celebrate it though.
Yes, exactly. We should still celebrate it, but it's like we're ambitious. So we're like, next, what's the next thing, right? And forget to take the moment. Wow, that was cool.
Very much so. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Bright Minds of eCommerce podcast. As always, you can find the show notes on our website at brightredmarketing.com.au. Just look for the podcast page. Thanks for listening.